start recording, and we'll get this thing going. Again, I want this to only last at the least an hour, at the most an hour and a half. So by 8:30, if we're still going, that's the dead stop point.
Right.
I don't even know if you guys would want to keep conversations going for an hour here. So, like I said, Hunter, Mega has been here for essentially what a test run of what the kind of idea I have for this is, where we just basically talk about what got us into casting, like how do we get our start and what keeps us going. And if we sidetrack into anything, we just roll with it. That's basically what the idea is for at least the first the first test run of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves, just to get the ball rolling here.
Okay. Well, I'll start. I'll start us out then. Hello, I'm Hunter, aka Hunter Tane. Have been casting Overwatch for the past 6 years, on and off. Now I've done things in, I would say essentially almost any league you could think of: CGL, BPL, SPCS, Tranquility, uh, anything under the sun at that point. And I don't know. I love doing it. I love doing play by play. I love doing it since getting spontaneously thrown into a cast back in 2018 and realizing, I seem to like this a little bit more than I like playing the game. Let's try to do this a little bit more often. And 6 years later, here I am, still freaking doing it. So I don't know. It's been a good ride so far.
Yeah.
I'm
Mega.
not gonna lie. You said intro, and I damn near did my VTuber intro. That's kind of why I had to stop myself.
No, do it. Do it anyway. Who cares?
No, absolutely not.
Why not?
It's so Do you know how cringe it is? Oh my gosh.
Do you know how cringe it is to try to start a podcast?
No. Okay. Well, first off, you should have had an intro. That's on you, buddy. But here, you know what? I'll hit it for the one time.
Hey, live and learn.
I lied. Anyway, but yeah, I am Megalas. I've been casting. I think 2017, late 2017, early 2018. Kind of jumped in on a whim, and it's been a crazy ride ever since. I'm not as positive as Hunter. I sort of treat this like Stockholm syndrome with Overwatch, where I'm just sort of here out of abuse at this point. But you know what? We're still here. We're still kicking, and clearly I love it at some level. So.
Yeah, I think basically, I mean, okay, let me wait. I have to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Dextron. So, and basically, like them, it was just kind of on a whim thing. Mega, you've heard the whole story, but again, I'll just condense it. College esports team got started, tried out, failed horribly. One of the worst players there, but wanted to be a part of the program so bad that I just asked the coach if there's anything I could do, and they just said, "Hey, we're looking for casters." I'm like, "Okay, don't really know if I can do that, but I'm down." And it basically just kind of grew from there, reached out, joined the Peachies, and then kind of snowballed my way into a lot of the leagues Hunter's in: BPL, CGL, Trank, SPCS, a couple odd ones here and there that no longer exist, like Flux Cup and League Zero. And I mean, again, this is, I think I would consider to be my 4th or 5th year of actual casting. But like Hunter said, it was because he loved doing it more than playing. Mega, he said it's Stockholm syndrome, which I get. I get at times, especially with the game that we all kind of primarily cast with Overwatch. It does kind of feel like it's more of a hurt than love relationship, but I mean, we're still all here doing it. There has to be a reason for that. Like, what keeps you guys doing it?
At a point, because when I first went into Overwatch, and I got into Overwatch like near the end of 2016, early 2017, like when I think it was like season 2 or season 3 that was happening at the time. And I was like, all right, I'm going to be a professional player one day, like every poor gold player told themselves, 8 years ago. And I was having fun with it for a while. And as things got further and I got into time, and I realized, okay, this is fun. Then I realized, okay, there's no way I'm ever doing this if at anything of a professional level in terms of playing the game. I realized my limits very early on. And so I keep playing. I still compete to this day for the fun of it, because why not? But
Eh,
uh,
yeah, I was gonna say, I
no,
think
go. Oh,
you and
go
Mega
ahead.
are probably a lot better than me at this game, or at least highly ranked. I know you've played on teams that have recently won tournaments. Mega, do
Hmm.
I don't want to get it wrong. I feel like I might be confusing, but did you play on a Calling All Heroes team?
Calling All Heroes Rising, so not as glamorous, Pinky Promise, but yeah, played one. What was it, Major Two last year? So I have that competitive drive as well, like Hunter. There is just kind of that little bit of a difference though, where again, like I'm not driven competitively because I'm like, oh, gee, I'm having so much fun. It's more so I don't know. It's a very personal thing where I've kind of always been shafted, always called the not good player, and so that's what sort of drives me. That's kind of why I cast as well, right? Is because it's a place that people kind of have to respect me because my casting has gotten to a point where it's actually pretty solid, and people can't just say, oh, you're being an idiot on the mic, for chump change or whatever it is. Like, no, I actually am able to sort of figure things out, and so that's why I still enjoy casting a lot. But yeah, it's just overall, it's been a very interesting experience.
Yeah, and like I'm the only one here who has probably never played this game on a competitive team, even at the lower levels where Hunter you have played and Mega where you have played. Like I didn't play on my college team, and basically once I broke into casting outside of my college, I just said, yeah, I'm never gonna join a team. I know I'm not good enough, and I don't necessarily want to put in the amount of work to say, hey, yeah, I want to do this and see where it takes me. No, I found my niche in casting, and it was just incredibly fun. But I mean, at the start, I think the first time I casted for my college team, one of the players came up to me after and said, "Dude, do you even understand what game you're you're watching?"
I mean, because it is one of those games that is not easy to get in and just cast. Like not to say it's easy to jump into something like Counter Strike or like Call of Duty where it's a straightforward premise, but there is a lot of things you have to learn about Overwatch. To this day, I will still mistakenly call an alt something different, even after 7 years of playing the game.
Uh, but I think with Ultimates, it's one of those things where you call it something different because everyone else calls it something different other than what
True.
its real name is. Like, I think the easiest one out there is Lucio, which is
Yeah,
beat.
we just call it beat.
Yeah.
That's not the name, but it's what everybody calls it.
Yeah, like I mean, I imagine we've all VOD reviewed with people before, and it's something where, I've had some of the people that have been VOD reviewing me just say, hey, like, understand what the actual name is and say that the first time, and then you can go into whatever the hell you call it after. But, like, if it's called something else by the majority of people, and we might get it wrong, like, I think Bastion's Ultimate right now is one that everyone all kind of has their own name for, even though I believe it's called artillery configuration or artillery barrage.
It's just artillery strike.
Yeah, I've called it. I think I've called it like Mortar Strike the past year. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I just called it mortars because that's
Yeah,
basically what it is.
Wait a minute, y'all been casting bashing gameplay? Where's this at?
check Diamond.
SPCS.
Yeah, legit check Diamond tier. You'll find it.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
no, I mean, like it's so weird because there's so many things like, especially behind the scenes that like for casters that some tournaments will be very sort of specific about, like you have to be saying ability names and stuff like that. But like beat is a great example. Everyone's allowed to say beat, even though it's sound barrier, um, in the middle of a cast, and like it just adds that extra level of having to learn things, especially from a like depending on who's watching and things like that. Whatever you're calling ability names can completely change somebody's understanding of the game. So it's just always something to think about.
yeah, uh, but like yeah, I where the fuck was I gonna go with this? Yeah, I get what you're saying there, and holy fuck, I cannot keep a train of thought right now.
The English is not coming to you right now.
Hunter, take over for a minute while I try to figure out why the hell my brain's deciding to go stupid.
Yeah, sure, yeah. But I think it's one of those things where it's like I think Megalast kind of referred to a little bit. Is sometimes it almost depends like who you're casting towards. Like when I was doing stuff earlier for the TEC, I figured for the most part it's a lot of like parents watching the game, a lot of people who are not super familiar. So you pretty much try to explain things on a more like 101 basis in terms of just like teaching things very basically. Hey, this is why this is happening very specifically, and kind of giving a simple breakdown. Whereas if we're on like SBCS or CGL, it's like, okay, these are people that have played the game, seen the game, God knows how many times, and it's kind of easier to explain things and kind of go more in depth to some level. Not that you shouldn't go in depth with other casts with people that are more of a casual audience and vice versa, but sometimes it just tends to kind of go that way because it just sits in the back of your mind of like, okay, these people already get this part. Let's explain this other thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Like I remember basically the rule that I kind of had when I was casting my college team was like, okay, first 3 weeks, parents are watching it. They know their kids play this. Maybe they're watching it. So, baby everything. And then after 3 weeks, or after basically 3 weeks or 10 maps, whatever came first, they understand what the hell's going on. Or if they don't, then they're gonna learn the lingo at some point throughout this season and have their son or daughter explain it to them.
I mean, yeah, I think the biggest example, in case you're at home and you're not really get what we're talking about, go back on the Overwatch League YouTube channel, go find a game that was live on Disney Plus, or it was a Disney XD at the time. The casting that occurred on those games, I believe it was Doa and Monty a lot of the time, which that's a bag of worms. But anyway, like the level that it got baby down and explained shows that you do have to cater to your audience, and you have to be aware of that as a caster. And it's something that nobody will ever think of, like if you're just watching casting, because if somebody is babying you down, unless it's like at a very extreme level, you're never going to notice as a viewer most of the time.
Yeah, and shout out to Spectrum, who actually brought up the Disney XD broadcast of Owl Season 1 and talked about it being something that set Overwatch casting back years, I believe was his own sentence.
That's a true sentence.
I mean, I never watched on Disney XD, mostly because there were much better options, and I didn't want to find Disney XD on my, I think, college TV at the time. If it even had it. Like, I knew where ESPN was, and that was it.
Oh.
I mean, yeah, it literally, again, because of the way that it was set up, that was also the only cast that exists of those games, right? So if you were somebody trying to VOD those games, I don't think it was ever like a crazy important matchup. I think they kind of scheduled it well. But I mean, the whole point of this, right, is just talking about stuff behind the scenes that you would just never really think of. And there's so much of that just within casting, right? Even if you don't touch on observing, producing, all that stuff that happens, like from a caster's POV, there's just so much you have to be aware of before you even say a word, right? Going off of talking about, your audience and stuff like that, where are you playing? What are the players like? Things like that. Is this going to be like a super pro thing? Are you going to have to actually be able to know, meta comps and things like that? Or are you going to have to randomly on the fly explain how Reaper Death Blossom is going to go massive in this next fight? It's like, what do you do?
Yeah, and I mean, that's always a very interesting thing that I mean, I don't think a lot of people who don't cast necessarily understand that. Like, I feel like at least a couple times, maybe a month or a year, or whatever it is, like people will always say, I could cast better than these people who are casting this game. And yeah, it might be for a league like SPCS, a league like CGL, or hell, even the pro scene, but they've never done it before, and they just don't understand like everything that's going into it, no matter what role it is. Like, there's so much you have to be constantly remembering with everything. It's not just as I would say to people who are just starting off, like, okay, you what you see, just say it. That's probably the worst thing you could say to someone starting out, but it's the easiest way to get someone to get going in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, and props to the actual people that did just kind of go for it and just get into it, because it's not the easiest thing in the world to just jump into casting and just kind of get the ball rolling. Especially because like it's hard to get a lot of practice initially, because you can obviously like watch through like VODs and like kind of like go about it your own way initially, but eventually like the best experience you can get is getting in front of the camera and getting on a live audience. And that is something that I don't know if this was ever the case for you two, but me personally was not comfortable in the slightest when I started doing it. But nowadays, very comfortable with it. I just never thought I would be on this side of the camera. I always focus on like working on production. When I was back in high school, I was doing a video production like career center thing. Was like, all right, I'm never gonna have to be in front of the camera. Any opportunity I could be to be behind it, I took, and now I have happened to be standing here in front of it very confidently. So that's more for me to say. Again, just props to people that actually give this a try and kind of like actually experience it. Like, hey, wow, like okay, this isn't as easy, because it, contrary to whatever belief it might be, much of this is very much for the love of the game. We are not sitting here. We are not millionaires. We do not sit in our castles right now. We very much do this for the fact that we either love this, or in Megalas's case, we are eternally stuck here.
Yeah, and like again, that was gonna be a part of it, like how I talked to you guys about before we went before I started hitting record, is like what keeps us in it. And like Hunter, you're saying, if you're getting into it, there's so many clean feeds you can find of actual broadcast, even pro level. I know. I think CGL did some clean feeds. I know BPL does clean feeds that they leave up on their YouTube channel all the time for people to go practice. But that was one thing that I never actually got. Like when I asked my college's esports coach like what I could do to be a part of the program, and he said caster, I was like, yeah, I can do that. Immediately threw me on a desk with one of my old friends, Levi, and it was like, okay, we got this webcam set up, we got this one Yeti snowball right here, go nuts. I was like, I've never done this. What am I doing here? Like, we didn't know what role we were going to do. I didn't know if I was being play-by-play, color. I didn't necessarily know what really either of those meant outside of play-by-play, because it's in the name. But like there, if you're wanting to get into casting, there's so many viable ways to at least practice before you take that first step into casting something else. But like, and there's also a whole bunch of leagues. Like there's other leagues outside the ones that we all cast for. I know one of the Rocket League leagues that I cast for has an Overwatch side of it that is pretty popular. And there's a whole bunch of other ones that I've never heard of that people are talking about regularly. So there's a ton of options if you're looking to get into it. Same thing with producing and observing. Like there will be, if you want to get into it, there will be places you can find to, at least practice your stuff a little bit.
And
no,
I
go
think
ahead.
I think it's like something important to like come in and like, if you're actually interested in learning casting and stuff, realize that you're gonna come in and you're not gonna sound like Uber the first time in, right?
Never.
There's so many people who think that. Like, I know I have my own personal horror stories, because for a very long time with BPL, I kind of, like, Solomon sort of was like, hey, listen, we know you know what you're doing, we know you can flex around, so we're just gonna like put you with anybody who's new, just so that way they have someone reliable that they can throw to for anything they need if there's any issues, complications. And you know leagues that are set up like that, absolutely amazing. You're not always going to get that when you're new, when you're learning, but just make sure you're going in and like, control the ego. Don't come in like, I'm going to be a micro celebrity off of this. It like, that's just a very unrealistic way to do it. You truly have to do this for some level of love or knowledge for the game, to actually feel like you're, learning and improving in some way.
Yeah, and like you're, and like you said, Megan, you're not gonna come in and be Uber, or you're gonna be the best one ever. Like you are gonna struggle. Like I said, I got told after my first cast, like, do you know what you're doing? And I went back and watched it like a week after that happened. I was like, what the fuck was I saying? Like if you're gonna pick this up, you have to understand you're gonna be rough at the start of it. But the longer you kind of stick with it, the more you do it, and the more you start working with a whole bunch of people, the more you'll get comfortable doing it, and the better you will get. But it will take a long time, like we've all said here. I said I'm on year 5. Hunter, you're on year 7 of casting.
About to be year 7, yeah.
And Mega, are you around the same time period as me?
No. I think it's about to be. It's either already been year 7 or it's going to be year 7 this year.
Yeah. So like, it's to get to the point where we are right now. We've given a lot of time because we truly do love at just casting, whether it be Overwatch or whether it be other games. I know both you guys have. I actually know. I'm assuming both you guys have tried your hands at other games as well. Hunter, did you laugh there?
Yeah, I kind of laughed to that, but also I brought your point, so I pulled up because CGL does have some of their YouTube stuff saved from back when I did CGL back in 2020, and I was listening to myself for a moment, realizing, yeah, I really sucked in 2020. No, I was really laughing at the other games part because that's something I still have to explore personally because it's always been fun. But the one thing it can be difficult to do, which is I believe this is probably the the case for some casters, getting into things for Overwatch, where it's not the easiest thing to find a league that wants to take you because not every league brings in beginners necessarily. So, it's going to be like that with pretty much any other game, but. I mean, the thing is, if you know people and like how like the ecosystem works, it's very easy. So it could be a struggle sometimes getting in initially to kind of find out like, okay, where are the places that I could find opportunities to kind of learn this game on the best way possible. Which, as I said, the best way possible is to get experience live.
Yeah, Mega, have you casted other games? I feel like I've at least seen you.
I used to do Pokemon back in the day. I kind of have tapered out with it. And then I've been in the Valorant VOD dungeon. I haven't gotten a lot of practice with it outside of BPL tournaments just because, like, honestly, it's very weird to say, but Overwatch is, like, one of the biggest community tournament things. Like, there's so many, like, other games where it's like, oh, you want to get into casting this, right? There's just not that level of community support and care, which is crazy because if you go anywhere on the internet, everyone is just going to crap on Overwatch 8 Ways to Sunday, but there truly is like a incredibly dedicated like communities that will continue to play Overwatch that they just don't do with other games, right? Like you're not going to go be able to throw a rock and find a Valorant tournament that's taking place somewhere in gold. Like it's just not going to happen. And so that's always something to sort of keep a mind out for if you are choosing like, oh, maybe I want to be picky about what game I start with and things like that. Like Overwatch, while it is a hard game to learn, it is just a game that will afford you a lot more opportunities than anything else.
Yeah, and I mean, I have the feeling at one point or another, like, I know there's a lot of people, myself included, who said, I like Apex. I want to try to get into Apex. That might be the only BR that's actually grabbed my attention. And I've said, oh, wow, this is really fun. I could sit down. I could learn this. I completely understand everything that's going on. But there's almost zero community tournaments or even just events for it. I remember CGL did a community like event for it. And I will always remember it because I put myself down as a host for it, and man, was I not good at it. And you can ask CB and Light Rose; those were the two casters, and they both came and like they were nice about it. They came up after and said, "Yeah, you didn't really do a good job with it." I was like, "Yeah, I knew I wasn't," but like it's very weird and Meg, it's very weird that even though Overwatch is a game that is constantly shit on, is that it has built this community and built this community ecosystem that is just absolutely goes crazy with just making these community leagues. And they might be events that turn into leagues down the road, but I mean, you see it very little with other games, and it might just be because we don't see it a lot. Like I know there's a couple Rocket League leagues that are out there, But at the same time, outside of the two that I've casted for, I haven't, or I only really know of one other one out there. And then you start getting into the other games like Valorant, a game that I've tried picking up with casting, I've tried picking up with playing, and it's just one, I just don't enjoy the game a little bit here, but that might just because I'm like every game I play bad, but it's just difficult to find. It's difficult to find stuff to do it with. Like, it, I love casting and I want to do other games, but it's difficult to step outside of that first game you pick up to say, okay, I want to find something that has a lot of opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's like the big difficulty of it as well, because it feels like picking up the first game is almost the easiest part at times, especially if you dedicate this much time to it as we all have, because I think it's very, very safe to say that Overwatch is our primary game and has been for a very substantial amount of time. So it's kind of weird to kind of like go into a second and third game. And to be fair, if you're someone who wants to go further as a caster, that is pretty much a necessity. But it's also about being able to actually cast a game that you have kind of fallen for as well, because there's some games that I do love that I just haven't gone into, like even ones that don't have like the biggest scenes, like Splitgate, incredibly fun game, had like the briefest of a competitive scene and very much died out because Splitgate 2 got announced. So I'm hoping that releases later today, later this year, and maybe something pops up for that, because if that happens, I would absolutely love to see something like Splitgate become a competitive game, because it's very fun, and I think that I would instantly go and cast that if that were the case.
Yeah, and like my one would be like either Splatoon or iRacing. Like, Splatoon is just like, if you ask me for my comfort game, that is my comfort game. It is such a simple game to actually learn and figure out, but it is a hard game to actually be really good at. And iRacing is just, it's just racing. I grew up watching a whole bunch of NASCAR, so I always wanted to do something with that, but I can't drive, and I can't work a pit crew. So, Mega, are there any games that that you personally really enjoy but just don't have a competitive scene?
Not really. Nothing off the top of my head. Like, I'm sure I could scroll through Steam and find something that's always like been an interest of mine to like cast, but there's just not enough events, even though it's something that does happen enough. If there's like speed running events for certain games, just because there's so, like, if you've ever sat and watched a speed run, I know this is a bit of a tangent, but
that's fine.
There's so much tech that goes into any of those, and to be able to like cast that in the moment, being able to because that's going to be a great thing as well to help people understand speedrunning, right? Because like, Mario 64, right? One of the most commonly known speedrunning games for that reason. A backwards long jump, right? Explaining that to a first-time viewer who's clicked in, probably heard the term, never really understanding it, and finally allowing them to kind of make that connection in their brain, like, oh, that's what this is. It could be really, really interesting, but again, that's just the lack of tournaments and stuff like that. It's crazy to me that there's just not that much infrastructure.
Yeah, and I mean, there's tournaments for it, but it seems like a lot of the big stuff with speedrunning is those the games done quick, or events like that, where they're all kind of there raising money for charity. And while there are tournaments out there and events out there for speedrunning, they just don't get that much attention. But like, speedrunning is an incredible thing to watch and just look at. And God, shout out Summoning Salt for making really good videos on speedrunning. Like, I fell down into the Summoning Salt rabbit hole about a year ago, and it's just like, it's so fun to go actually watch people speedrunning now.
Yeah, speedrunning is a very, very fun thing to do. Like, I've given some, like, not just thought to, some actual practice to it. I held a world record at one point. It no longer exists, unfortunately. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Actually, I'll go ahead and I'll slap it in general, because, proof in the pudding and all that bullshit. But yeah, no, I held that for a little while, and that was one of the only games I actually went to speedrun. But it's a lot of fun to get away with that, and kind of see, like, how do you complete a game this quickly? How can you conceivably do that? Because you'll play a game, you'll think, man, I finished that pretty quickly, and realize, oh, someone finished it 3 hours faster. How did that happen? And that's the biggest like fun part about speedruns in gaming in general, by the way, is like, how the hell did that person manage to do that?
Yeah, breaking, like, how the hell do people do that? Breaking shit, I think, is the funnest part about it, because like you said,
Oh,
Mega,
yeah.
like the tech in some of these speedruns is just like, oh yeah, we are fundamentally breaking the game without it crashing, and it just works somehow. It's incredible to sit there and just say, oh yeah, basically I'm gonna clip through this wall and be at the final checkpoint of the game, and you're starting at the beginning. It's like, okay, I don't know how you did that, but you have figured it out. It's insane sometimes.
It's very euphoric to hit a BLJ for the first time. It's not it's not an easy thing. And when I did it the first time, I was very pleased with myself. It's not easy. It is not. My God, some people do it seamlessly too, like without a second thought.
Yeah, and again, that comes from practice and stuff. That just sort of happens. Like, I know my dabbling in speedrunning has mainly been in COD Zombies, but like again, it's all tech and stuff. And to sort of wrap this back to casting, because I led us down this tangent again, like
Again, I'm fine with that.
there's so many crazy things that happen over the course of a game, whether it's speedrunning, an actual like competitive match of something or what have you, that you as a viewer, if you're just looking at the gameplay, you might not even realize. Like Dex said, when if somebody clipping through a wall or doing something crazy, you might not even realize that's crazy. You're just like, oh, I something happened here, and it's sort of the caster's job to be able to translate that and be like, hey, listen, this is what just happened. This is why it's a big deal, and this is what it sets up down the line or gives potential stakes to. And that's why I feel like casting is so important, that a lot of people, maybe they miss out on that factor, that information.
Yeah, like we're there to guide people through it, but like that's only the very base start of casting. If as you start to get better with at least doing that, then you want to just start adding in what I think is one thing that I'm always constantly trying to work on now, even though a lot of the leagues we cast and we're not following every team, we're just going game to game, and it's very hard to say, okay, we're gonna follow this team week by week. Is building up a story for these teams, and I know both you guys have worked with me in the past and worked with me when I've sent questions out to teams. Like when I do that, it's to try to figure out more about this team, because a lot of times it might be the first time I'm seeing them, and it's the second to last week of the regular season.
Yeah. Unironically, the best way I have found to learn about teams, and I hate to say this is one of the answers, Dex, it's to face them. It is to play against them. There have been so many times where I've gotten to cast like semis and finals where it's like, hey, these two teams kicked my ass a couple of months ago. I know what these teams like to play. I know they're good. I understand these little bits about them here and there. But that's obviously a small part of it. Not everyone has that experience, but that's where I generally get a good chunk of my info from. That's why I'm like, hey, I get when I would get knocked out in the past with like Tranquility, I would just instantly start trying to cast that division for the rest of the season, because it's like, all right, this is the most knowledgeable I could possibly be in a division, and it just kind of plays to my strength in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, if you, in case you're not able to like sit and compete against them, though, like I know, for example, this season with CGL, I purposely made it my mission to be able to build some level of storyline, and that sort of ended up with me just sort of focusing on a lot of the EU matchups, just because again, there's 6 different divisions. There's about to be even more with this upcoming season, and it's like a complete, it's a completely crazy thing to have to try to keep and manage all of that. But like as a caster, whenever you hear us talk about storylines and stuff, it's not like, oh, we just want to sound professional. It just makes it that much more entertaining for the viewer. Like I think a perfect example was Smelvin Industries this year in CGL, right? They've been a team that existed for years. They never ended up winning anything though, and to be able to finally like hype them up as they were going into matches, tournaments, and things like that, where they had the potential to get that first win to finally, you know, put the chip on the shoulder, it adds so much to your cast. It allows you to kind of put a narrative behind your words, bring like sort of add stakes to it. Like the best way I could think of to summarize it is like it's almost like a wrestling match where somebody comes in as a heel, somebody's the hero, all this other stuff, and just to be able to add that to give personality to players, to teams, purely off of the storyline you build, it truly can be an amazing thing.
Yeah, and it sucks that I mean Smellman finally won, and
Mhm.
that's been a team that's been there the entirety of the time that I've been a part of CGL, and
Mhm.
hearing that they might say that this is it absolutely kind of like devastated me. I know that's a very maybe it's going a little bit too far to say that, but it's been a team, like I said, it's been a team that's been there the entire time. I would say it's a mainstay of CGL, and like I understand wanting to go out on top, but them not being there in the next season, it's gonna be weird.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's the very unfortunate reality of competition, and it's that no team lasts forever. I don't think you could name a team that has existed since like the beginning days. I think it's even hard to even like list like a team that's been around for only 2 years. Like you have to think like the percentage of teams that have existed for like over a year has to be down into like the scope of like maybe like 20% when you think of like the grand scheme of things, where it's like teams are either just like constantly like falling apart and rebuilding somewhere else, or just getting completely rebuilt. It's the unfortunate part about esports, but uh I don't know. In the same regard, it kind of has to
Mhm.
happen. So I can't really, I can't flame it too much because it's the nature of the game.
Yeah, and I mean it's not just the nature of esports; it's the nature of just sports in general. Like
Yeah.
every team's gonna try to build the best team they possibly can by going out there and getting players from other teams if they can to say fill a role. But like in the case of Melbourne, it's like that team's just not gonna be there. In esports, yeah, you're right. The teams don't last forever. I mean, hell, we're already seeing that with OWCS. You see that in every
Yeah.
esport though. It doesn't matter if it's Overwatch, Rocket League, Val, Dota, uh, League of Legends. Apex, teams will come and go. Like orgs will come and go, teams will come and go, even though they might be very liked teams and everyone kind of expects them to stay together. It's just they break up for one reason or another.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you never really think about like from a player's perspective, right? But there's so many things, right? I mean, it's like, listen, I got a 9 to 5, I got to do this. I mean, we had
Mm.
people. I think there was one team. It was somewhere in Diamond, NA Diamond this year, who literally had like a dad and son playing together,
Yeah.
and they never
Oh
got to
my
scrim.
gosh.
They literally were like, listen, the team like fully formed, knowing that they couldn't scrim and stuff like that. But it's levels of dedication, what you're actually able to commit, as well as like burnout, right? Like
Mhm.
especially if you're
Mhm.
comparing this to traditional sports, like people always love to make that debate. Like to sit inside and stare at a screen 8 hours a day, like I'm not saying it's more physically demanding, but it drains so much out of you, right?
Yeah.
Even in amateur circuits like this, that there's a reason you're not seeing these really long player careers, because players genuinely start to lose their minds. They're like, listen, I have to go do something else. I can't just sit here, staring at a screen the entire time. Even if I'm winning, it's just not fulfilling enough.
Yeah. And like you said, even as you go lower and lower in the kind of the grassroots scenes, it's just like, especially with diamond tiers or the lowest tiers in
Mhm.
the Overwatch grassroots community, like they're playing it for the probably almost the same reason that we're casting. They're playing it because they truly love this game, but at a moment's notice, it's like, hey, yeah, I still like this game. I just don't want to play it in this setting anymore.
Uh, Yeah, I've been there personally, like God knows how many times. The classic Overwatch player move of like, all right, I'm done playing the game. 4 months later, all right, I'm back. I'm ready to go. Because sometimes you just need that break
Yeah.
to come back and kind of rediscover that love. And I'm sure that's probably maybe the case with casting in some regard to some people. I don't want to throw anything out there, obviously, because I don't know how people feel about casting, like person by person. Like everyone feels differently about it, but it is healthy to like have the moment to step away and kind of regroup, because if you do just grind away for 4 to 6 months straight, I will tell you firsthand, you will get very tired of this game.
Mhm.
You will be very exhausted and want to step away from it, which at that point, the healthy thing to do is, hey, step away for a bit, relax, and just kind of just take a moment and regroup, you do other things you like to have fun with, essentially, and hope you can kind of regroup and kind of come back into the game and the mindset that you had in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean, I have a weird thing with that. Like, I understand taking a break, especially with casting Overwatch, is something that you kind of have to do. You're not going to be able to cast every day of the week because there's just not leagues that go every day of the week. But and I want to get your guys' opinion on this. Like, over the summer months, like June, July, and August, there's normally not a lot going on, and especially with casting, those are like, I think of those as the worst months when I'm kind of sitting there thinking about what I could be doing, if I could be doing anything to get my name out there. But having the time to kind of sit there and relax and not cast, it allows me the time to think, and it allows me the time to say, is this really something I want to try to do? like like do I keep this grind going? Like, and it's been the last 2 years I've said, I'm this old, I could be out, doing this or doing this, but I'm doing this instead. Is this the right thing for me? And every time I think about that, it's like, yeah, I think I'm doing the right thing, but every year, and especially with how long it will get between casts, the longer it gets, like if it's 2 weeks between casts, I'm sitting there thinking, God, this might not be it.
I'm gonna be honest. I have no idea. I can't relate to that at all. I've had conversations with this, with Spectrum. I could cast 2 matches a day every single day for the next 8 years, and I'm good. Like, and I mean, it is just sort of a difference,
Yeah.
in mindset, approachability, and stuff like that. But like I said, like it truly just depends on the person. And it's not even like a level of drive thing either, because the drive is definitely there for everybody. Once you're at, like, I'd say this level that we're at, because you get those little random opportunities that help you feel like you can be that extra step above. But like, it truly is just sometimes if you take a little bit too long, that existential dread, it can set in and be like, oh damn, what's going on here?
Yeah, especially as, uh, uh, I mean, I would say all of us here are probably a little bit older than what a lot of the casters that we might cast with are, because it seems like a lot of them are still in college, or even the observers and producers that we're working with. Like, we're a little bit older than them, almost, for the most part. It feels like a lot of the observers and producers are in college or freshly out, so they're still in their early 20s, while I mean, we're all on the back half of our 20s already.
Yeah, it's quite the thought. I remember, I don't know if you guys have ever casted with Cherry J before, or have talked to Cherry J.
Yes,
But I casted them with the first time for GGNA, who did their comeback,
mm-hmm.
and I remember casting with them for the first time. I believe Cherry J was, 16 at the time, and I'm here sitting at 26 years old. I'm like, I have never felt so old casting a game before in my life, and I'm like, I had the moment of like an existential crisis of like, oh my god, this new generation is here. And to be fair, this new generation is freaking killing it, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, it's insane.
Yeah, like I made a tweet like a year and a half ago, and basically just said the amount of talent there is at the collegiate level, not players, but actual production side of it, is astounding. They only need to have their shot, and they will take over everything. And I feel like we're slowly starting to see that, at least in a little bit in Overwatch and in some other esport categories or titles as well.
Yeah, it's definitely going towards the area, and obviously that's the healthiest thing for esports. Honestly, is if we're able to keep cycling through the collegiate system the way we kind of have been, it's going to create talent that's going to be around for years to come, and it can only be healthy for the space. And that's like the one thing I want more than anything. While we kind of sit here and let's like, if it was a situation where it's like, hey, if I had like a choice of like to make it to the top or like have this continuous cycle where this esport can last for, like over a decade. It's like you kind of have to sit there and think about it, because we want nothing more than just all this love we poured in to like continue going to the next generation, essentially. Not to call us old as if we're gonna die in 2 years, but it's something you have to like kind of keep in the back of your mind.
2 years? We're old. We're dying in 2 hours, man.
That's messed up.
But Mega, I mean, you can attest to this because you were there for essentially the test run that we had in that one call with you, Spec, and Echo. And I mean, we're talking about the talent that there is at the collegiate scene, but if you look at the EU, Spectrum himself said that there's really no collegiate scene. They're basically the scene that is there for Overwatch in the UK is basically kind of what we're doing here for casting. Is they're doing it for the love of the game and a pair of socks.
Yeah, there's like, I feel bad. I feel so bad for EU because like, pound for pound, they're normally better a lot of the time than anything else, but there's just not that level of support. Like NA support has gotten better. It used to be absolutely abysmal as well, but the collegiate scene has revitalized Overwatch in such a great way because it's no longer, hey, gamble it all on playing Overwatch to try to make it to the big leagues. It's, hey, go sit in college, get your degree, scrim the nights where you can, and still, that way, even if Overwatch doesn't work out for you, whatever game you're playing, you still can be like, oh, I have a degree. I can just go be normie. But EU, I mean, yeah, they just don't have it. I would unironically say the best source of like tier 3 EU would possibly be CGL. I'm not even kidding. Like, it's bad, but it's unfortunately the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, and I mean, you especially saw it a lot after Owl died. The exodus from pro player to collegiate player almost instantly. And I mean, hey, more power to them. Like, they're getting their college paid for, they're getting a degree. But at the same time, like, I've gone back and forth with, hey, this is a great thing for collegiate and this is a terrible thing for collegiate, because what happens after these pros go through and they graduate? Like, is there going to be still that talent pool there from high school that wants to try to go and play at like the big name schools that are going to, I'm assuming, stick in this after all the pros that are there right now, get their degrees?
Yeah, I imagine it's kind of the choice you make. Not to compare it to something like college football, but like I'm going to anyway, just for simplicity's sake. Where I imagine that it's going to be like two different groups. Like one that just wants to go and do that will go through collegiate, like collect their degree and play the game in the meanwhile. And probably as soon as they're graduated, they've had their fun. They move on with their lives. They get a job with their degree. There's the other group that's going to try to heavily pursue Overwatch as something they can do for, as a career for at least a couple of years, which then you have to make the choice whether you can do that in collegiate or not, because we've seen plenty of players that either just completely skipped out in collegiate and went straight to like OWCS levels, and ones that originally were collegiate and decided, okay, I can do this now. I realize I can play on this team here and potentially like make more money this way and like live the dream essentially. And it's a rough choice either way, but it's one that, one has to kind of make in that situation, and I can't really blame them either way.
No, I can't either. And like, the weirdest thing is, that was another part of the conversation that came at, like, talking about college football when we were talking with Spec about this. And I think at this point it was mostly like me and Echo talking about it to Spec and explaining basically what NIL is.
Yeah.
Like, and saying that was one of the big differences between the universities in the UK and the universities in North America. The fact that collegiate players for just a sport like football can make $1 million in the span of 15 weeks.
Yeah, on top of having, again, your entire like college paid for.
Yeah,
and a lot of these universities like 6-figure, like scholarships, like tuition costs that is all being paid for. Which, my God, it's still weird to think about that.
Yeah, like I'll give this example because I have a cousin who is not she's not on the football team at Alabama, but she works for the football team at Alabama.
Mm.
They wholeheartedly expected to make the college football playoff, and thought they were gonna go to Penn State, a very, very cold place. So after the season ended, they got a duffel bag of Nike gear that was probably worth about $1,000 for cold weather. Well, then they go to a bowl game in Tampa, another duffel bag of brand new Nike gear that wasn't released, probably worth another $1,000. And she's not a part of the football team. She's a part of the training staff. So think about what the football team's getting, plus all the facilities, the personal chefs. Like, it's insane to think about that.
It has to be like my second cousin actually plays for University of Toledo. He's a running back over there currently as a sophomore. And I haven't talked to him personally about it because obviously second cousin, not a whole lot of opportunities to speak. But I've always wondered his situation, like right there, because again, Toledo's not the most glamorous school in the world, not the most expensive school either. But I imagine it is Toledo. Whatever, it's just, whatever. I dox myself. It's a fine city. It sucks, but there are definitely worse cities.
I will tell you this: my dad went to Ohio. He had a running joke that all you needed when he was growing up to go to Toledo was a checkbook. You did not need a pulse. You just needed a checkbook to sign the tuition bills.
Oh God.
Yeah, but I like the support. But going back to it, the support that there is in NA for just collegiate esports is insane, and it's always fun to see like schools take that leap with it, even if it's like, okay, we're gonna do one game and that's it. But then you have club scenes. Like, I feel like a lot of the there's a lot of great programs out there that aren't programs. There is club teams. Like I imagine we all know Drexel, that's a club. Arizona State, a club. It's insane to see that club teams can go out there and compete against teams and win championships against teams who are fully scholarship players.
No, that's the kind of fun of the game right there, where it's very much something you can kind of think of in a lot of sports as well, where it feels like almost anyone can beat someone else on any given day. It's something that happens a lot in college football, and while it's not as prevalent in Overwatch itself, it has happened a few times, and it is absolutely fantastic to watch it when it happens.
Yeah, it is. And I'm gonna apologize that me and Hunter start talking about sports.
We did just start going into sports.
So
like, I can't.
Oh no, y'all are fine. I just
ready for the sports podcast.
Yeah, welcome to the sports podcast. Let's fucking end it right now.
We're gonna roast the SEC for 2 hours straight.
Here, I'll just end it with this for sports and the SEC. It just means less, okay?
It does.
But I mean, getting back to it, like I think we're all in a good spot when it comes to casting and everything like that. And like, I know we all probably have aspirations, or at least we all hope that we can take another step up. Don't know necessarily what that is for all of us, or what you guys look at as where you would want your next kind of place to be with casting. But like, just what I said, I think we're all kind of hoping that we can continue to climb. And like we've mentioned throughout, like, we're all kind of doing this for the love of the game, especially at the level that we're at. Yeah, is there paid opportunities? Yes, but are they always there? No. But we do this because we absolutely love casting.
Yeah, the payment usually is just a nice little like cherry on top in a situation, because again, a lot of what we do is just for the love of the game and just coming and doing our things. Which I obviously, if we minded, obviously we wouldn't be doing this. Like we just love doing it, and being able to make money on the side is just a nice little like, oh hell yeah, that's awesome, sweet. You know, cast a few games, you know, buy some groceries, fill up my gas tank, you know, get a new chair. Hell, I do need to get a new chair soon, actually, now that I've said that.
Let me go to TJ Maxx and buy another shirt.
What?
The Dex shirts go crazy. Like,
hey,
absolutely.
Hey, I have spent, like, I am now being picky when I go to like TJ Maxx and Ross, because that's where I buy all my shirts. Like, if it's not at least funny or very interesting design, I'm not buying it. I already have enough shirts that I don't wear that I need to start wearing again.
Uh, I really want to keep like I love wearing jerseys specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I can, because I have some of like the old Overwatch League jerseys and like memorabilia stuff like that. I've been trying to get once more. It hasn't arrived yet, but I asked my parents for Christmas. We both saw it the Sakura that released their jersey like a month or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know what I'm talking about, Dex?
Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah, that one. I have that one getting here soon. I'm waiting for the day I get it so I can that's like immediately gonna wear it on camera because it's just really fun. Because some casters do tend to just go towards a certain level of fashion with what they wear, and some people are very unique about it, like you. Some people aren't, but everyone does have their own style, whether they believe it or not.
I mean, I used to just wear jerseys and just shirts when I first started casting, but I think like a month into casting outside my college, I said, okay, these are people I don't know who are taking time out of their day and at least taking it a little bit serious. So let me at least throw on a collared shirt for this. And again, Mega, I know this isn't necessarily a topic that you could talk about a lot with your VTuber model. Actually, wait, can your VTuber model change shirts?
Yeah, I have two separate outfits. Honestly, if I like one of my things for this year is to get more money so I can have more outfits. Because I can have outfits that are baked into the model, but also like if I could just go grab a shirt PNG, if like of any shirt, as long as it's there, I could technically just put it over top myself. But I mean, it's one of those things where, like, obviously the outfit and stuff matters because you do want some level of, like you said, some level of formality depending on where you are. But like at the same time, there are some community tournaments again where it truly is just a lawless wasteland. You can kind of just do whatever you want. But yeah, I mean the outfits are. It's always interesting. It's always funny because I know, like I know this is something I struggle with, like not in terms of outfits, but because like you said, I am like the VTuber caster, quote unquote. Um, letting something like that because you have your shirts as well, where not letting that become, hey, that's what this person's all about. Like you still have to be like, hey, I'm a caster still. I'm still doing my job. Not letting that sort of overtake what you're all about it's a very fine line sometimes.
Yeah, like I have crazy shirts. You don't see them that often. Like you might see them once a month, and that's for a reason. But like I still just want to be known as a caster. I think one of the funniest comments I ever got from one of the shirts was, I think it was when I was at DreamHack. Someone posted like the shirt had to be so expensive because of its crazy pattern. My guy, that was $8.99. But yeah.
I'm still sad. I don't think I ever saw you casting the what was it, the Guy Fieri one, the Flavor Town shirt.
Yeah, that was because the shorts ripped.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, the shorts ripped on them, and I didn't feel like having to wear two pairs of shorts at a convention center in downtown Atlanta.
Entirely fair in that retrospect.
Yeah, but I mean, we're almost getting to that point where that first time, about an hour. We're almost an hour in right now. I'm gonna say we go a little bit more and just finish up any thoughts we have with this, because again, this is all a test, and I feel like it's been at least fun so far. But I don't necessarily know how you guys have felt about it.
I have felt very good about it. I'm not known for being much of a talker. Like, despite being a caster, I'm not known for being a talker. Like, I'm normally the quiet one on the desk when it comes to things, and part of that comes from just loving watching people like Joker and Spectrion kind of mold about their things. which is very entertaining.
Yeah, and that's kind of a reason why I wanted to start something like this. It was so that the idea I had with it is it might not always be you two. Hell, it might not even be me. If people want to come in and do this and just get themselves out there more, is to show more of their own personality, other than just, hey, I might criticize you. I might say you messed this up for your entire team and you might hate me forever. It's just more to get to know, the person besides the caster.
Hmm. Well, we're real silent there for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Us, me, Meg, last are both in our heads like, yeah, they'll say something here in a moment. I'm sure.
Yeah. No. I was gonna throw it to Megalas and ask, like, what have you thought about this test run we've had here?
It's been a fun little chat. That's the thing with podcasts and stuff like this. Whenever you're starting to get things done, whether this gets uploaded or not, I sincerely hope Dex uploads it. I think the biggest thing moving forward, whenever there is just sort of a podcast, being able to sort of hone in on what you want to do, because there's billions and billions of general podcasts out there. Unless you are amazing personalities, you're never really going to be able to carve it like that. And I think Dex has a really interesting concept with this, being able to talk about the behind the scenes on esports. Because there's a lot of stuff that goes on that a lot of people aren't aware of. All of the drama, the tea, that's fun. There should be a whole drama episode at some point. It's like a big milestone. Bust out an iceberg or something, but otherwise,
no.
yeah.
Oh no.
Time for the CGL iceberg.
The CGL iceberg. Fucking Spectron showed me the Newell, or the UK esports college iceberg.
Oh
that one was great. But yeah, and Mega, you touched on a point right there that I feel like I poorly described. It was getting a behind the scenes look at esports from the production side, but more specifically the production side of what I think a lot of people would consider tier 3 or even tier 4, depending on what esport it is, like that grassroots one, for the people like all of us here, and we've said it multiple times, doing it for the love of the game. And, like, honestly, it would be really fun to have Headrammer on here.
It'd be very funny.
Mhm.
Headrammer would say a lot of very interesting things.
Yeah, he would, but at the same time, I know, Mega, you're starting one up for CGL that I'm maybe at some point me and Hunter will be on podcast for CGL that is specifically all about CGL. So Headrunner might talk about the stuff there a little bit, but I don't. I believe I know I read the thing, but I'm fucking stupid. I know that it's gonna be more focused on what's going on, what's the happenings of CGL, like from the play standpoint. I believe.
Yeah, that's what the plan is. I know there might be plans for like a little bit of behind the scenes on the first episode, because I'm already sort of planning it out on what we want to talk about, because there is that whole new region being added, and being able to pick Headrunner's brain about what it takes to add a whole new region to an existing tournament system. Because again, like here's a secret as well. Probably I will say this on the CGL podcast as well. But if you were a CGL player, viewer, anything like that, genuinely go like say thank you to Headrammer at some point. That dude single-handedly is keeping that thing running a lot of the time. Not just in terms of his personal investment in terms of like monetary, but like day in, day out, right? Like at any given time I could message this man about CGL, whether it's like, hey, here's a staff issue, anything like that, and like he'll be there. Like he will come deal with it, whatever it is, because it is like it's his love child at this point. And it's to have that type of person would be amazing for this podcast to have for an episode, just somebody behind the scenes, as somebody who runs a tournament, to just really explain everything that goes on.
Yeah, like I think Headrammer deserves all the flowers that he gets, and honestly, it's not enough. Like, he has done so much, and the fact that now uh, South America is getting we're getting a South American tier, or tier added to it. It's insane to see that, because it just allows the grassroots scene to grow more, and a lot of it is because Headrammer uh, is just keeping the thing going. And granted, it's not just Headrammer, but he's the head of it, and you could talk about everyone uh, basically on the admin team as well, and the prod leads, the people who put the schedule together, who do honestly a really great job with it. Like Headrammer deserves a lot of it. He deserves a lot for keeping it going as long as it has, especially through all the ups and downs of fucking Overwatch and Blizzard itself.
Yeah, I mean, my God, the sometimes the hurdles you have to go through in the first place is to run tournaments in the first place, and you look at the amount of leagues that like it previously existed and kind of went away for whatever reasons, but like how difficult it is to keep a league alive, especially one at this level. I genuinely cannot imagine what it truly takes in that scenario, because to get away with, now we're coming up on season 15 now, which I don't know if I've seen a league hit season 15 before. Does anyone think they can think of one? Because I cannot.
I mean, it's very difficult when you look at just esports in general, because a lot of the times games will not necessarily live that long. Like, I want to make the comparison to COD, where they won't do seasons. They'll just do, okay, this is the season for this game, for this game,
exactly.
like Black Ops 6. I want to say maybe there's a Rocket League out there that I don't know if it's MLE or minor league esports, that's been around for I think 11 seasons, and that's like the same thing with CGL, 2 a year. But it's insane to see a league last 5. Like, what, Trank made it 7. I don't know how long Flux or League Zero did. Get Good, what is 4 in total, I think. I might be wrong about that, but like it's very hard to keep, one, a captive and active audience of players, prod people, and just behind the scenes as well. Like, I don't know anything about the admin side. Mega, you might honestly know a little bit more about me, since you're heading the CGL podcast here soon. But I mean, I don't know that much about the admin side of it at all, and I've heard from Echo, I've heard from everyone that's had to deal with some of the bullshit that the teams will provide. It sounds like something I never want to take over or never want to be a part of.
Yeah, no, trust me, they are not trusting me with admin privileges that much in CGL here yet. But for Kunoichi stuff, calling all heroes stuff, especially with Rising, well, again, I'm not being trusted with the information. I get told all the information because, me and Echo are tight like that. And yeah, there is, believe you me, like anytime you see a tournament running flawlessly, there is at least 4 to 5 things on fire in the background. There is like, this team is accusing this team of smelling weird. This team is doing, weird things. Everybody's got this going on. Like, there's such chaos. And that's just sort of, again, the nature of tournaments and things like that. I will say, as much as I love CGL, and they definitely are like the longest running in the scene, it does help to bolster their numbers when they run 2 seasons a year. I think, a great example of that as well is BPL, right? Like, they generally are 1 season a year. There might be like a 9-month sort of deal instead of a full year. But BPL has also been around a while, and as somebody who was there at the start of BPL, like, it's very crazy to see what started almost as a gag turn into like a real thing. And that's generally what happens with a lot of these like community things. It sort of is like a ha funny that slowly escalates until people are like, wait a minute, we've actually got something here.
Yeah, and like, hell, I've only been a part of BPL now for a little over 1 year, So it's always so fun to hear people talk about BPL and how much they truly do love it. But like if you've been around a lot of the leagues as long as we have been, you will see a lot of names. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what league it is, but like you'll recognize so many of the players playing, and it goes back to one thing we touched on earlier with how passionate the Overwatch community is with at least playing in these grassroots. There's no money involved. It's all just a for bragging rights type of tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like there have been names that have just been around for like the longest of times, and it's. I mean that is one of the beautiful things about it is that we can have people come in that just stick around for the longest periods of time. Like I wish I could throw examples out there. Like there's a ton of examples, and we could generally go all day with it. But the fact that I could sit here and probably name like 20 to 30 people that have been around for a while and are still actively competing here, and that makes me very happy to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you guys touched on it a little bit here, and it's the main reason why I want to bring other people in on this idea. If and this is the reason why I always consider it to be a dumb idea, is how would I like act on it? Would I actually take the time to say, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this weekly? Do I have the time to do that? Like the fact that it took me this long, because Hunter, I reached out to you in early December. Mega, I reached out to you only a couple weeks ago when we had that like test run after a CGL broadcast, I believe it was. And you said that Hunter had talked to you about it. Like that was when right there I said, okay, I need to get the ball rolling. If there's two people who are actually interested on testing this with me, like it was going to be something where I was going to wait till after the holidays anyway, especially because my family was celebrating everything late. So I just couldn't find a good time to do anything. But like bringing in other people, like tournament admins, tournament people who run tournaments, prod or like observers, producers, replay ops, like, and it doesn't even have to be from the leagues that we're all in. Like I would love to talk to someone who only does like League of Legends and just pick their mind on what they kind of have to deal with. Like, I mean, at first it's going to be a lot of the people that I think we would all consider our friends coming in here. But as this thing goes, I would love to just expand to like, oh yeah, here's someone who does League, Apex, Val, even like fighting games, because fuck, fighting games are fun to watch.
They are really fun to watch. It's sometimes a unique level of casting as well, because not every game is very kind of. I don't want to say as straightforward as casting, but I'll use that term anyway with Overwatch, because it's very simple. Play by play, they talk during the fight. Color talks between the fights. It's not that simple in other games where there's a lot more downtime, especially look at like a Counter-Strike or a Valiant, where there are buy phases where you're sitting there for like a minute and a half. It's just it's a different style entirely, it feels like.
Yeah. Hunter, I'm gonna be honest, and I think I fall into this sometimes. I think there's a lot of casters who also fall into it where, yeah, we might be one of those roles. We're gonna fucking step on the other roles' toes at some point. Just keep talking. Like it happens with casting, especially if you want to get a point across. But sometimes, like that's one thing, especially over this past year, I've been just saying, okay, shut the fuck up. It is their time.
Yeah, it's generally pretty fun working with someone who's new or hasn't done it in a long time either, because they kind of it's fun watching them like rediscover like new things as they go along as well, and like be able to like watch like their improvement in real time. That's always a lot of fun to see, and entertaining at the same time as well, just to kind of go through that experience. I can't remember whether it's like being on the other shoe. Like a lot of people I casted with that first, it just also weren't entirely sure what they were doing, which it was what it was. But Either way, I'm not sure where I'm trying to lead this point to. But
Here,
either way,
let me step on
go
your
for
toe.
it.
Let me step on your toes here.
Yeah, all right, go
And
for it.
yeah, let me step on your toes here and tell you why I had to be a color when I first started out. It was because my friend Levi, who was my first like duo back in college, he had to fucking shout anytime there was a Winston. And throughout the majority of my time in college, Winston was a player we always saw. So like he would scream, "Here comes the monkey!" anytime he saw him. Like it. There were times where I had to just say, "Okay, man, calm down, please. I need you to be. I need you to be coherent here."
I like I've been there. I used to like I used to not have the best vocabulary. I still really don't, to be honest.
English.
But I would always use the word massive when describing things in Overwatch. So like whenever it was like someone got like a big grav or a big shatter or like got big, like say that's massive. I remember because did you ever? I doubt either you ever met Masa before. Not the player, the caster. Masa. But
no?
this was like early days of CGL, I should say. Like 2019, 2020 kind of era. But I remember he talked to me after we did a grand finals together. And he talked to me. He's like, "Dude, you said massive a lot," and I went back and I had to use massive. No kidding, maybe like 50 times on that broadcast. 50 times of saying the same word over and over again, not even realizing that I'm just describing everything with the same freaking word.
But I think that's something normal. Like it's crutch words or crutch phrases. Every caster will have them. I mean, Mega, I imagine you have had crutch words or phrases in the past that you've noticed and said, "Wait, I've said this too many times."
I mean, that literally was what I've been working on pretty much this entire year. That was like sort of the consistent thing of having to deal with my crutch, because my crutches were coming up a lot. I have this slight other issue where I've replaced all my crutches with just very outlandish old school like euphemisms or just sayings. Um and so now just people are just like basically aging me even more than I already am. So that's been fun. That's been an issue. But yeah.
I would say though, if you're able to do that type of stuff, there will be people out there who appreciate that kind of callback. But it's like we all make references to real life stuff, and even though it's like, okay, there's probably a lot of the stuff that we reference that you just assume this is gonna go over everyone's head, no one's gonna get this, but you feel happy that you were able to get it out there and have it at least sound halfway decent.
Yeah, it's nice kind of having that moment to realize, like looking back. I'm sure we all kind of maybe not realize that moment, but maybe look back on a cast and had that first like realization of, okay, that actually was good. Oh God, I liked that. Oh, wait, like okay, I'm getting like we kind of like, I'm sure we maybe have been in a situation where we feel like we kind of have like momentum, or we kind of feel like that point where it's like, oh okay, I feel like we're kind of working on this different level now. But I don't know. It's satisfying seeing that happen at the very least, whether it's yourself or like the people around you as well, because like everybody has grown like significantly over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and like that's a really fun thing to see, especially when you see someone come in and like say, "This is my first cast," or "This is one of my first casts," and then you see them a year later, like, holy shit, they've improved a lot. Like there's been a couple casters I've told like the producers after the series, like, if they stick with this, they're gonna be fucking great.
Exactly. Like around the time I like kind of slowed down on casting, like near the end of 2020, is when Joker was really starting to get going in CGL, and that's when I kind of slipped away. And I go back a couple years later and I hear his name. I'm like, holy shit, this man is amazing. Wait a minute. Wait a darn second.
Yeah, like, and I'll tell you who the last person that was for me. It was Ashen in
100%.
Like, I think like Ashen is already, I think she was a top 500 player. So she has the knowledge, but then like one, she speaks so much better than fucking so many people. She speaks so much better than me. She can speak clearly, which is one
100%.
thing that I will start just absolutely butchering at points. But Mega, have you ran into a situation like that where you ran into a caster who's just starting off, but you're only starting off and not been doing this for like a year?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, it happens. Like I said, there's a lot of situations where I get put like in a training role, right? It happened a lot with BPL, and it's going to be something I'm working with Echo on like intentionally for like the Calling All Heroes scene as sort of somebody to start training up new casters. But anytime, it's just such a joy, which I think is nice, right? Because being perfectly transparent, there's one or two casters out there. I'm not saying I know names. I'm just assuming who will see something like that and they'll be annoyed because it's like, oh, this is somebody who's going to gun for my spot. But I think we are all of the same opinion where new talent is obviously good. Like it's going to keep accelerating people. It's going to make people strive to get better and better at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, better casters make a better product. So absolutely great. But it's just something that, like you said, anytime it comes up, it makes you feel good inside because you're like, oh damn, this is somebody who's really really good. Maybe they're not sure of themselves, not realizing it yet, and to be able to be that resounding voice to be like, hey, no, listen, you are good at what you're doing. Keep going. It's such a great role.
Yeah, and and you kind of touched on it there a little bit, like especially with just new casters coming in and having a lot of passion with it, and just new casters, new prod people in general, just coming in having passion with it. It doesn't matter if they hit the ground running or start off very slow. It's always something that I look at saying, okay, great, we're seeing new people come in. People still want to try to learn how to do this, because my fear is if there's not people who are trying to do the behind the scenes stuff, you're seeing the scene slowly start to die. That's the point. But if you still see people slowly coming in and seeing new faces, it's like, cool, it's still going, and that's what makes me very happy.
Yeah, like 100%. Like I just as an example, I know we have goats this weekend for casting, but just seeing the fact that every single like on the sheet, every slot is full. Like there are no more spots to put people like on the list even, and that's like really awesome to see.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to see. And Mega, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like I was for about goats. Like I always what.
What about it?
Like it seemed like I always joined the calls that you guys are having when you guys were playing, and it was, you guys did incredible. You guys are in grand finals, right?
We got to losers finals.
Oh, did you guys? Oh wait, you guys lost.
Yeah, we lost 3-1. To be fair, we were going up against the team who literally won the Diamond tier last season, so it was never going to be an easy one. But we took multiple maps off of them between the two series that we played.
Yeah,
I'm very happy about how we played and how we did. It was always going to be probably a little too difficult to win, to be honest. But there were good moments in there. I have some bombs in there.
Yeah, the funniest thing about sitting in that call was, one, hearing Spec try to actually coach you guys up, and then two, during the times where there was downtime, watching like Blizz and the people go back and get clips for the next intro for CGL.
Like they created cinematics of the bombs too, because they were massive. There was 2 5K bombs. Well, technically 6K if you count the Diva mech. But did you see the clip of the Joker one, the first one?
The one where he took where he took the 6K.
He took the 6K, and I just yelled out, "Joker, you bitch!"
Mega, I'm also gonna be honest. It was probably a good idea that you deafened that call. Joker just went off on a fucking tangent, chanting the USA Hockey fucking fight song.
Joker was definitely kind of drunk by the end.
No, he was not definitely, or not kind of. He was definitely drunk. But I mean, it was fun to watch you guys go through that, especially for a team that was thrown together literally like what 2 hours before the tournament started.
Yeah, like the night before, it was just a thing of like, hey, who can do this? And like a few people responded, and then we had to throw it together still like the morning of, because like, oh wait, okay, we need people for this. Oh, we don't know if this person's gonna be here or whatever.
Yeah.
And it still managed to like knock out multiple teams, which I'm happy about because you know it's fun to go in and get wins in that sense, not to but I don't know, just to jump on with a group of like producers, observers, and casters and like win games. It's like, oh shit, that's cool.
Yeah. All right, but we're nearing the dead stop time that I talked about, that hour and a half time. I don't really want to take up more of your guys' it's one Monday night. But again, thank you guys so much for doing this. Again, this was a test to see if we could hold a conversation for longer than maybe 15 minutes. And I think we did a really good job with it, especially with what the idea was, with like the very, very basic like idea I had and told you guys was what got you into it, what keeps you here, and then we'll just tangent off from there. And that was my biggest fear, is there going to be a tangent, or is it just going to be, okay, we're always kind of just circling back to one thing we already talked about? But
It's a little bit of both.
It's a little bit of both. Sometimes because we kind of steered it back towards that when we were going off on those tangents, but I feel like that's just something that's normal about that, just to kind of veer off a little bit. But
yeah.
Again, thank you guys so much for doing this. I don't have a name for this yet at all.
Well, we'll think of something.
I have a couple ideas. Again, I mean, there was one idea, but I have to ask the person who technically has it already if they'll allow me to have it, but I don't necessarily know if I want to just take their podcast name.
I mean, that's I know what you're thinking of. I don't have to ask.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly what you're thinking.
Yeah, Laggy and Unfeatured's old one, the podcast.
Yeah.
But I have an idea too. But again, thank you guys so much for coming to do this. Here, Mega, you have any final thoughts?
Nope.
Hunter,
straight to the point. I love to see it.
Short, sweet, to the point.
Nah, just that this was fun. I didn't expect us to push to the dead stop time, low key, but I'm very happy that we did. So, hey, we take those W's.
I mean, hey, once we hit the hour, and I said we were past the hour mark, I literally only wanted to go about five more minutes before we wrapped up. But then we started talking about CGL and Headrammer, and we just kept going. But again, thank you guys so much for coming out and doing this test. I will get back in touch with you guys about doing it again next week. If you guys are available, but I'll probably also reach out to some other people as well. Because like I said, I want this to be something where people are always kind of rotating through. And even if it's something where I'm not the lead and it's one of you guys, like we always just have people coming in and talking about what keeps them doing what they're doing in esports.
No. Oh,
yep.
I agree. Makes sense. Makes a heck of a lot of sense, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. All right, but that will do it. Again, thank you guys so much, and thank you to everyone who, I guess, watched. Mega, I will put this up. This will go up. I promise you that. All right, but thank you guys so much again.